Hey there, and welcome to the Confident Woman Podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Brooks. Join me as I sit down and chat with co-hosts, friends, and carefully curated guests and talk about all the things that empower you to become your best and most confident self. So, let's get started. Hey there, and welcome back to another episode of the Confident Woman Podcast. So today, we're talking about the culture of busyness and why being constantly busy isn't always a good thing. So I don't know about you, but it feels like everyone these days is always on the go, running from one task to the next with no time in between. And you just feel like they all just run into each other. And next thing you know, it feels like the day just feels like one big run-on sentence. But it doesn't have to be. So don't even get me started on all that, because it's crazy to think of this constant pressure and demand to really be productive all the time. And to be honest, it's not sustainable. It will lead you to a place that I've been recently, and not too proudly to say, but had really crashed and burned. And you would think after my first lesson of chasing perfection, I'd come back at it again and be a little bit smarter about it. But it's funny how the same lessons, even though you learn them, they'll show up in different areas of your life, and you just figure out, like, how the heck did I get here again? Well, I think it's because we put unrealistic expectations and demands on ourselves to outperform. You know, we're humans. We're not meant for continuous performance. We are not the Energizer Bunny. No matter how much we can rest and recharge and do all the things, we are human beings. We are designed to take each day at a time, to go slow, to be mindful, to be aware, to do all the things that are in a place that's productive and producing and performing, and all the things that just make you feel like, oh my gosh, when's it ever going to end? When am I going to get caught up? When is this list going to end? It's not. And the reality is, the more we keep pushing and driving to chip away at our never-ending to-do list, all we're doing is taking time away from what really matters. And those are our relationships. That is our commitments to doing random acts of kindness, to volunteerism, to being present, to learn, to grow, to read, to explore, to try new adventures and experiences and curiosities and wonderments and all the things, right? But if we're trying to do all the things, like literally, we miss out on life entirely. And it just feels so damn heavy. So, like, feeling this way, I mean, it can really, really lead to a place of burnout and stress and just lack of fulfillment in your business, in your life, personally and professionally. So that's what I've recently encountered over these past several months, is that I was watching this wall come closer and closer. And it's like I was a driver in this car. And even though I had my foot off the gas, I just felt like it was just coasting at a speed that I could not control. And that's where I was finding myself, like, head on in this metaphorical collision with a wall that I saw this whole time and felt helpless. And I think at this pace, when we're going so quickly, we see where we're going, but yet it's almost like the inevitable. The damage is about to happen before you can take any sort of, precaution to really jump out of the car before it really crashes and burns. And so I'm saying that now, looking back, so that you listening aren't experiencing what I just went through. And it's terrible. I don't wish it on anybody. But like I was saying, we feel this stress, this burnout, and lack of fulfillment in our personal and professional lives. And I think for any of you who are entrepreneurs, if we don't have that resiliency or the support, sometimes when we crash and burn, we just lay there, right? And we feel helpless. We become victims, and we don't even pick up ourselves and clean ourselves off and go back at it again from a place of, now learning a lesson. But, we might just give up. And I think that that's something to really be mindful of, because I think we have to remain so committed to our why and our intention, and realize that not everything has to be done now. And so that's where we talk about just feeling like we always have to be busy and constantly performing and doing the things, because if we didn't, therefore we're not making a difference and blah, blah, blah. Right. And that's kind of the conversation that was happening. And unfortunately, I found myself in that situation again, not that long ago, I guess. So I think it's important to recognize, like, breaking free from this busy trap, this busyness that feels like it's a badge of honor if we're constantly busy all the time because we think we're doing big, massive, life-changing things, which we are. But the only life that you're massively changing is your own in those moments. And that was something I had to really recognize and be like, well, if my intention and my goal here is to change the lives of others, I have to first start with myself and change how I am living, and recognizing that slowing down and rest are just as important as stepping on the gas and going full speed. So sometimes there are moments in life that, those quick sprints are necessary, but also being mindful of keeping the pace like a marathon runner would. So, recognizing that allows us to refine and identify really what matters. So taking that time to step back and be like, okay, what am I racing towards and why? So getting that clarity on what it is, your mission, your vision, your values, your priorities, understanding the overall objective and the goal that you are working towards. And once you know that, then you can really start to focus on what's truly important and let go of the rest. So we can it's kind of like pruning our busyness garden, right? We got to weed it out full of all the entanglements of just things that want to get our attention, and, they're going to wrestle for our time as well. So learning that, and then also learning to say no. So by saying yes to everyone and everything is a direct no to you. So I know that no can feel harsh. It can feel you're pushing away people. It can also mean that you might be saying no to yourself. It might be hard to say no because part of what you need in your life to catapult you to where you want to go sometimes does require you to say no to the things that aren't important to you at this moment. And even if there are connections or opportunities, listen, if you said no today, another opportunity will present itself the next day. So no doesn't mean the end all be all. It's a pause. That's how I look at it, is that no means no, not right now. But if it's of interest and it's something that I need for the betterment of my goals or future purpose, whatever that is, that's where I can come back and say, hey, I said no. However, I, did not have the bandwidth at the time, and now I'd like to circle back, or what is another opportunity that would be similar. And so again, no is not definitive. So we got to practice that word. And if it makes you feel more comfortable, just think of it as a pause. It just means no, not yet. But there are some things that we want to straight up hard no on. Like things that just really aren't in alignment, or you really don't want to do it. And we have no problem saying no then, but we have to practice it in some other things just to put those parameters and the boundaries on our vision for where we're going. And so third, talking about it in a second, is to have those boundaries, right? Boundaries are there for our protection. They protect our time, they protect our energy, and they really do protect our health and well-being, right? Because we end up just being exhausted, saying yes to everything with no boundaries. And the next thing you know, we're just like drained. Our energy is drained. Everything just feels depleted because we haven't said no. We didn't put those boundaries or parameters on, and we don't have an ounce to give. And that could be really, really, really exhausting, especially when you have people that depend on you or rely on you, but you're overly committing to other people's schedules and demands and pressures and expectations. Having those boundaries, it might mean setting specific work hours, or taking additional breaks throughout the day, or setting aside some time for that self-care and relaxation. And I know that in a previous episode, we really talked about giving ourselves rest, what that looks like, how to, incorporate routines best serve you so that you can find the rest so that the next day you can really attack the day from a place of clarity and rest and peace and all the things that we're longing for internally. So, simplifying your schedule is very important. So recognizing these tips and strategies here will help you to simplify that. I know that it's easy to fill up our schedules because, like I said, the tasks never end, the never-ending to-do list, commitments, meetings, people, our own wants, our own needs, right? It just feels like it's not conducive or sustainable. And, simplifying your schedules can actually lead to greater productivity and fulfillment. And that was key. I was like, whoa, so you mean I could say no and get more done? Yes, sign me up. So it's important to focus on what is essential in your life and in your business so that you can, again, let go and find rest. And last but not least, again, we talked about this in another episode, but all of this kind of really does come full circle because these little tips and strategies are ways to incorporate, a healthier version of you, empowering you to become your best, most confident selves. And if we don't have these parameters in place, then all we're doing is just feeling like we're all over the place. We're everywhere and nowhere. So practicing mindfulness. And that's why I say, taking a step away from your work, allowing yourself those big, deep breaths, taking a big, slow inhale, holding it for a second or three, and then slowly exhaling. And next thing you know, just that simple act of how much more calming you feel just after one of those. Now imagine doing 3 or 5 or even doing that for a minute in between. It's like you just refreshed your mind. It's so freeing and so helpful to allow your mind and your breath and your heart to really be in sync and have that synergy and alignment that it keeps you focused and it keeps you even keel. And it's been so helpful, just those little tips. But also, if breath work isn't your jam, maybe meditation is. I know that there's different forms of meditation. Meditation could be as simple as taking those few moments to deeply breathe. It could be a walking meditation, which is one of my favorites, where I will just take a long walk. So it incorporates movement and meditation. And through movement, that repetition, my mind is able to just focus on one step, two step, one step, two step. And there's something about it that really helps free the everyday clogs in the brain. And at night, I come home after my long walk and I feel way more energized, but yet relaxed, if that makes sense. So practicing mindfulness can really help reduce just stress. Our anxieties are calmer, and it helps us to remain in that present moment. I think it's important because we're into the depths of our work. We can lose ourselves, and then we get caught up in the past of not getting enough done for the day, and then the future of how our dreams and goals won't be done in a certain amount of time, where it robs us of today's present moment. So I'm hoping that a lot of these tips that I'm sharing, like I said, they've been helpful for me. And I just want to give ways back to empower you listening. If you can learn anything that I've gone through in a way that I can give back to be of service, that is all I need out of this. That just means so it wasn't just for my good, but a way that I can help others as well. So breaking free from our busy trap, prioritizing what really matters in our lives, identifying our values, learning to say no, setting boundaries, simplifying our schedules, and practicing mindfulness. All of that as a whole can really just lead to a better quality of life and a way for us to really internalize what happiness feels like again. Maybe it's been a long time since you felt that contentment, that happiness. And I'll add, again, my very favorite tip. gratitude. So gratitude, again, will always keep you in the present moment. So whatever we don't have or don't feel that we're making a difference in, gratitude, again, is an attitude. It's a practice that keeps us in this present moment and turns all the things that's not into all the things that are. And that's a place that we can really, really be grateful for. So I hope that these tips were helpful, some of them insightful. Maybe you've heard of them, maybe you haven't. Maybe these are just reminders. Whatever it is that you've taken from today's episode, I would love to hear from you. I'd love to hear which tip resonated with you the most, which ones you're working on, or what you're currently working on that maybe I didn't even talk about. I just want to learn from you. And of course, if you want to partake in these conversations, head on over to the Confident Woman community group. And that is where we talk about these things. We share information, we share tips. We just have a lot of fun. We have a lot of conversation. So if you're not in it, please do check the show notes. All the links are in there, and it is the Confident Woman community. So I hope to see you on the inside. Take care. Hey there. Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode of the Confident Woman podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode as much as I did, please be sure to like, subscribe, and leave us a review. Thanks again for listening.